In this exercise, we're going to introduce some text into our perspective scene. I've saved my progress. It's ready for text.ai, and it's found inside the 28 perspective folder. Now, you can't create text in perspective, so the type tool is not one of the perspective savvy tools in the program. However, after having created some text, you can drag it into the scene, just as you can drag a standard path outline into a scene. And I'll do that, by the way, by grabbing my perspective selection tool, which you can get by pressing Shift-V, of course, and then make sure that your left-hand pane is selected here inside the widget. It should appear blue. Then go ahead and click on the text to select it, and I must have my selection edges still hidden. So I'll press Control-H, Command-H on the Mac to bring it back, and just go ahead and drag that text into the scene like so. Now, it's going to look pretty scrawny at first, as you can see here. And that's because it's getting a little bit lost in the shuffle. Also, we have all these anchor points all over the place, which may lead you to believe, and I would not blame you, that Illustrator has automatically, without your permission, converted the text to path outlines and it's no longer editable text. That's actually not the case. So I don't know why Illustrator does this. I don't know why it freaks you out like this, but it does choose to, so fair enough. I'm going to go ahead and nudge that text over a little bit. And tell you what, here's how we're going to edit the text, because it needs to be bigger, I think, and it needs to be meatier, and we need to tighten the leading. Just go ahead and double-click on that text in order to enter yet another isolation mode, and notice that your text appears selected. And what's interesting here is your text still appears in perspective. So unlike when you're editing a symbol and you have no idea what you're doing and you're working totally blind, when you're modifying text in the isolation mode, you actually have a sense of what you're doing. Isn't that awesome? It's like we're living in the 21st century or something. Anyway, I'm going to bring up my character panel, which I can get to by pressing Control-C, Command-C on the Mac. I'm working in Myriad Pro right now. I'm going to switch to bold condensed in order to get this effect here. And I'm going to increase the type size value to, let's say, 47. I could play around with the values if I wanted to, but I just happen to know 47 works. Now, you may not believe me because it doesn't seem to work very well out there in the illustration window, but that's because our leading is way too big. So I'm going to take the leading value down from auto to 38 so that we're packing our text closer together. And then I'll go ahead and hide the character panel and press the escape key a couple of times in order to leave the isolation mode. And now I've got to nudge my text over to the left. However, I just pressed the left arrow key a couple of times and I get this very disturbing warning. It says the perspective object will be expanded in order to perform this operation. I'm so glad this alert message finally came up, because it's a zinger. If you're trying to move, scale, or copy a perspective object, which I am, I'm trying to nudge it, actually, please use a perspective selection tool, if you would. Well, what's happening here is I, without thinking, I don't know when I did this, but I switched to the black arrow tool. How did that happen? I don't know. I think Illustrator did it for me because last I knew I had the perspective selection tool active. But what it means is you're actually nudging the text out of the perspective grid. You're not really expanding it, so this is not a traditional use of that term for Illustrator. Expanding means that you're converting it to path outlines, or possibly that you're removing it from the grid entirely, which would make you think that you're restoring just flat text, but that's not what's happening at all. All you're doing is just nudging it out of perspective. Now, what would be really super useful inside of this alert message here is a cancel button, so that you could say, wait a sec, I didn't mean to do that, but instead it's just, okay, thank you for letting me mess up my document. Now I'll go up to the edit menu and choose undo move to put that text back, and I pressed the arrow key twice, so I just want to make sure I didn't goof up too much. And now it's just undo, so I think that's fine. That means that I would undo something that's not a move, so I'll just go ahead and escape out of there. And I'll go ahead and grab my perspective selection tool, Shift-V, of course, and now I'll try pressing the left arrow key, and this time I don't get in trouble, and I also get some good results. So I nudged the text up a little bit as well, as you saw me do there. All right, you know what we need? We need a drop shadow. So I'm going to press Control-H, Command-H on the Mac to hide the selection edges for a moment. And then I'll go up to the Effect menu. And I could just choose the Drop Shadow command because that's the last effect I applied. Or I can mash my fist and press the E key in order to bring up the Drop Shadow dialog box. And this time around, I want to go ahead and apply an X offset value of 2 and a Y offset value of 1 and a blur of 2. Color should be black. Opacity 100% mode is multiply. You can go your own way, of course, but this is what I came up with. Turn on the preview checkbox. It looks like that. That's awesome. Click OK. So we now have text in perspective, and I can drag it all over the place, and it remains in perspective, which I think is cool. And I have to tell you, that this perspective drawing function inside of Illustrator is at once cool and horrible. Sometimes it's just rocking away and doing exactly what you want it to do, and other times it's making you cry. So just, be prepared for that experience. So there's my final effect. To really take it in, I'm going to go ahead and hide that perspective grid by clicking very precisely on that closed box inside the widget and then switching back to my black arrow tool, and there you have it. In the next exercise, I'll show you one of the strangest tricks in all of perspective drawing, and this one allows you to move an object in a perpendicular direction by pressing the 5 key.